Hi, everyone. Welcome to Free Write Friday. My name is Jessica Lynn Johnson, for those of you who don't know me, and I am the founder and CEO of Soaring Solo Studios. And Soaring Solo is a company that is dedicated to the direction and development of one-person plays. So welcome to Free Write Friday. This is a new offering, and I am really hoping that it'll become a space where we can be supportive, be in creative expression together, and yeah, just have a safe space to develop solo theater work with me as your guide. And just know that if you ever miss one of these sessions, because especially initially it's going to be somewhat sporadic in nature, it will of course be on Fridays, but in terms of what time and how many times a month I'm going to be doing it, I'm not sure yet. So just be sure to hop on my website, or if you're on my email chain, you'll get those updates when I do set them on the calendar. And with the Hollywood Fringe Festival coming up, things are going to probably get pretty crazy, but I will try to work these in wherever possible. Okay. So let's see, but what my whole point with that was, if you miss any of them, I'm going to be uploading them onto my YouTube channel, just like I did with Isolate, Meditate, Create, which many of you have been doing. So if you miss any sessions of this, you can always go to my YouTube channel, Soaring Solo LLC, Jessica Lynn Johnson, and find them there, plus over 100 other videos of solo theater content and tutorials and guided writing prompts. So please make sure you have something nearby you to write with and write on, since that's what we're doing today. And how this is going to work, I'll start with a talking point, and then we will write together based on that talking point. So today, I really wanted to focus on one of the most important things in solo theater, and that's the narrator of your solo show. This is probably the most important character of your solo show, because it's likely going to be the character that the audience spends the most time with. It is the character that is guiding them from A to Z, the entire plot of your solo show, tracking the arc of the story and all the introductions of all the characters in the story. It's setting all the exposition in place for the audience so that they know what's going on. Because for those of you who are deeply involved in solo theater or have seen any of it, you know that it can get quite confusing with one person on stage, especially if there's multiple characters, if there isn't a clear narrator or narrating device to guide us through all of that. So with that said, I'm going to give a few examples of what a narrator can look like in a solo show. So I think the one probably you're all the most familiar with would be the autobiographical first person narrator. So it's just, hi, I'm Jessica, welcome to my show. Let me tell you about, when I was in kindergarten. Let's rewind back to the 80s and meet my teacher, Miss Inman, who changed my life. And then we pop into maybe a character monologue of Miss Inman, or a scene with little Jessica and Miss Inman, or something of that nature. So that would be more of the traditional narrator that most of us have seen in solo shows. But there's also the fantasy narrator, which can be like a fairy godmother, or a higher power, or a spiritual guide, or something that's kind of fantasy based, that can guide the audience through. So same scenario I just gave you, except it'd be like, hello, I'm Goddess Gigi, and let me show you Jessica's kindergarten teacher, and and then setting the exposition of it took place in the 80s and blah, 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 setting us up with those expositional details, but in second person and from a more omniscient point of view. So that's another route you can take. And this is in the realm of fantasy, but the personification narrator, and I think Kamakshi Hart is on this call, and Kamakshi exemplifies this as one of the narrators in her show, with her character of shame. So a personified narrator could be an inanimate object. It could be a feeling like shame, like I just mentioned. An animal, you could have, your dog or your pet or something like that, tell your story. So again, we're speaking from this second person point of view about you, but not from your perspective. And so that can be a really great way to tell your story as well, and give some interesting distance between you and your story, and have fun with personification. Next, we have the real person narrator. So again, not you, but not fantasy and not personification. It would be a real person. Maybe that's a historic figure. Maybe that is someone in your family. You know, if my grandmother was telling the story, oh yes, and I remember when Jessica was in kindergarten and she met her, you know, her teacher, Miss Inman. And so then we get the same story, but told through the eyes of my grandmother. And she sets us up with that exposition as well. So of course, those are not all the different types of narrators, but those are several different types of narrators you can have guide someone through a solo show. And you don't always have to have a narrator, and we'll get into that in a different session, but you do want some sort of narrating device, which again, I'll get into that narrating devices in a different session. But today we're just focusing more on the traditional narrator, the person who's leading us from scene to scene and moment to moment. And let us remember too, in solo theater, a lot of times people will be themselves as the narrator and they'll just story tell, or they'll just do an hour of stand-up or an hour of a memoir. And in my opinion, that is not solo theater. That's storytelling or stand-up or memoir. It's not a play. So to me, you want to find ways to theatricalize your story and leave narrator in certain moments to go into a scene or go into a character monologue. And of course, if you're doing a dialogue, you are going to be playing both or all of the characters in that scene as a solo artist, or infusing multimedia or something of that nature. Okay, so that's a little bit about narrator. I would also say you want to think about who is narrator talking to. So a lot of times if it's just first person autobiographical narrator, we're just talking to the audience as the audience in the theater in real time. But you can also take them into fantasy scenarios, such as all of a sudden we're in a 12-step meeting and they're the fellow people in the 12-step meeting, or they become your therapist who is listening to you, or their God as you're praying aloud on stage or whatever. So continuing to think about not only who is your narrator, but who is your narrator talking to, and who is the audience therefore becoming as they're listening to this story. So those are all some really important things to get grounded with in the beginning of your solo show, so your audience knows who they are and who you are and where this story is taking place. So with that in mind, I'm just going to set my timer for 5 minutes, so you don't have time to get too much in your heads about this. And we're also not going to share our work in this setting. You can share your work in my free class, which I do occasionally on Saturdays, and I'll give you more information about that at the end. But this is really just a space for us to write. So again, I gave this little lecture talking point, and then you're going to write. And if you want to share it, there will be different settings for that, but that will be happening today. And I say that so that you can be very uncensored, be very free and expressive today in what you write, and don't worry about having other eyes on it just yet. So I want you to just isolate one moment in your life. Don't overthink it, but just one moment in your life that was meaningful. Maybe a graduation, a divorce, the death of a loved one, a brand new job, a vacation, just something, some impactful moment of your life. And I want you to think about what narrator could tell this story, this part of your story. And for 5 minutes, I just want you to write from their perspective. So for some of you, you might just want to write from your perspective. First person, here's what happened. For others of you, it might be more fun to play an inanimate object and have that object tell your story, or your pet tell your story. Or as I said, maybe a family member, a real person. So just thinking about those different types of narrators and how they would tell that story. So I'm going to go ahead and set my timer. I will let you know when the 5 minutes are up. So just jump on in and be as free as you can. Okay, and please wrap up your writing. Hopefully you were on a little bit of a roll there and can continue that later. So let's see. If you wrote in a journal or scrap paper or something like that, I always encourage people to transcribe what you've written into a document on your computer. I love working in Google Documents. I think that's a really great way to work as well. It saves everything as you update it. And then as you build out your creative team later, you can share your document easily with them and they can make edits and things of that nature as well. So, but transcribing it is what counts. So it starts to really become a script and take shape. And I would also say, as you're examining and exploring who could be the narrator of your solo show, try telling the same story from several different points of view and see what you discover, see who you have fun portraying, or what nuance you find. When you tell the story from different points of view. And sometimes we can get really stiff if we're just sitting in front of our computers writing. So you might get up on your feet and improvise as a character telling the story and record yourself and then play it back later and transcribe the gems. Sometimes that can loosen us up if we get in our bodies with our pieces and write and improvise in that way. And I'll close with lots of different announcements we have going on in the Soaring Solo community and some other free stuff that's coming up. So you can find that in the chat on the side. Starting with my next free class, The Art of Creating the One-Person Play, which I've been teaching for about a decade now as a free class. The next one of those is happening on Zoom on Saturday, June 12th. That's at 10 a.m. Pacific time, noon Central time, 1 p.m. Eastern time. And all you have to do for that is RSVP via my website, soaringSoloStudios.com under events and free class. It's also listed under free stuff, I believe, as well on my website. And you don't have to have any previous experience. If you got something good out of what you wrote today or one of the isolate, meditate, create sessions that we do on Wednesday mornings and you want to bring that to class, I try to see as many people's performances as I can. So feel free to bring it there. Also, we are now sold out for the Creating Captivating Characters Intensive in June, but we are taking names for the July intensive. This intensive is taught by award-winning solo artist Heather Dowling, who's a soaring solo instructor. The curriculum is designed by me and my 20 plus years in this genre of solo theater. So it's a 3-week intensive. It's fantastic if you're just starting out your solo theater career. It can help you discover what your script is, what story you want to tell through the lens of characters. And if you're already pretty far along in your solo theater journey, then it can really help you polish and perfect the characters in your solo show because it is such a unique genre and the tools and techniques in this genre are very, very specific to this genre. So we go through all of that. It's $149 Wednesday nights for all 3 weeks. So feel free to email me about that for July, the month of July, at soaringsoloartist@gmail.com. And certainly if you're interested in working with me one-on-one or trying a power pair session or small groups or any of that, you can email me as well. No obligation for any of that, but just letting you know if you're ready or wanting to take that next step. And then we also have another free event for the next couple of Wednesdays called Isolate, Meditate, Create. So the next one of those is June 9th, 9 a.m. Pacific time, 11 a.m. Central, noon Eastern. And we get together on Zoom and I lead you through a meditation and visualization, and then we write together because I find sometimes meditating and visualizing first helps get us out of our head and really tap into our creative intuition. And it's really amazing the types of things that people write from that space. And if you're curious about Isolate, Meditate, Create, and want to jump in and see what that's about in advance of Wednesday, again, you can go to my YouTube channel and there's I think like 118 of Isolate, Meditate, Create on my YouTube channel. So you can watch it there as well. And then Solo Fest, which is the largest solo theater festival in the West Coast and possibly now the nation. We've been streaming solo shows all throughout the pandemic, and we are now in encores and best of fest. So this coming Sunday is After the Fall, written and performed by solo artist Johnny Ray, who survived an incredibly traumatic accident and then is now thriving and living a beautiful life. But it's about his journey through that. I don't want to give too much away, but I would certainly recommend seeing it. The link is in the chat, and that's happening Sunday at 6 p.m. And if you can't make it Sunday to watch it online, the link will be available, I believe, for 72 hours after the show ends. So you will have time after that to watch it. And all that information is also on my website because I proudly directed it and developed it with Johnny. And then the Hollywood Fringe Festival, which is digital this year due to the pandemic and may become a hybrid where we have in-person audiences and live stream audiences. That started registration on May 1st, and the festival itself is happening in August. So if you're curious about either volunteering or watching Fringe shows or being in a Fringe show or writing your own solo show for Fringe, I would definitely recommend checking out the Hollywood Fringe Festival website. Certainly feel free to email me for information about it as well. I've been a part of that festival for the last decade, so I'd love to guide you through it if you'd like assistance. And let's see, the next FREEWrite Friday, if you'd like to come back for another one of these free sessions, is happening Friday, June 18th at 2 p.m. Pacific time. So feel free to join us for that as well. You just RSVP through the site like you did this time. And I think that's everything. That was a mouthful. So I'm going to leave up the chat for just a few minutes as I jump off, just in case you want to jot down any of that. I know I threw a lot at you, but I really enjoyed spending this time with you all today. I hope you got a lot out of it. If you have questions or things, please feel free to email me again, soaringsoloartist@gmail.com, or come to my free class and get some questions answered there. All right, have a lovely day, everyone.